Welcome back to FNN News, Finfine News Network, and I am your host, Sibel. In news reported recently, a report indicates that Oromo asylum seekers in prison were among those who were killed in a bombing in Sada in Yemen, which borders on Saudi Arabia, recently on January 22nd. Here's an image here of people attempting to pull the victims of this bombing out of the rubble. The death toll of the bombing is estimated at over 80 dead and more than 200 injured, and according to early reports, at least 15 of those killed were Oromo asylum seekers. According to Amnesty International, the weapon that was used was a laser-guided precision munition, which was manufactured by the U.S. defense company Raytheon. Oromo asylum seekers in Yemen have faced frequent airstrikes and bombings from both sides of the conflict raging right now, such as a major attack last month that was attributed to the Houthis and that killed more than 450 Oromo asylum seekers in Sana'a. This comes as northern Yemen has endured relentless airstrikes in retaliation for Houthi strikes of an oil facility in Abu Dhabi on January 17th, and calls have been increasing for the U.S. to halt sales of weapons to Saudi Arabia and its coalition allies. This comes as Lynn Malouf, who is Amnesty International's deputy director for the Middle East and North Africa, said, quote, by knowingly supplying the means by which the SLC, the Saudi-led coalition, has repeatedly violated international human rights and humanitarian law, the USA, along with the UK and France, share responsibility for these violations. In other news, severe drought conditions are now sweeping across areas of Oromia and southeastern Ethiopia. According to Mustafa Kadir, who is the commissioner of the Oromia Region Disaster Risk and Development Induced Displacement and Resettlement Commission, 800,244 people are now in serious need of assistance in the 8 zones that are being affected by the drought. Mustafa also said that as this drought continues for an estimated 3 months, although it could be longer, there is a major shortage of fodder for the 6 million estimated cattle in the affected areas. And he told a local news station that an additional 4,976,981 people are being provided with 1,587,694 quintals of grain and up to 51 million ETB in cash as part of government-funded aid efforts. He said that, quote, so far 197,896 quintals of food was distributed to the drought-affected Borana zone alone. Meanwhile, UNICEF is also appealing for $31.8 million to address this humanitarian disaster that was created by the drought. We'll put up a press release here released by UNICEF. That money would reportedly go to 2 million of the people who have been affected. That includes an estimated 600,000 people who have now been displaced due to these serious drought conditions. UNICEF is estimating that more than 6.8 million people throughout Afar, Somali, and Oromia lowland regions are now in serious need of humanitarian assistance. 95% of potable water sources are now running dry in some of the most highly affected areas, and women are reportedly having to walk up to 15 kilometers in search of drinkable water. UNICEF also found here that nearly 850,000 children throughout these areas will be severely malnourished, and 156,000 children are currently out of school due to these drought conditions, combined with the ongoing war conflict and economic conditions. Meanwhile, skyrocketing inflation in those same areas has also contributed to this serious situation, with an 80% decrease in milk population and a 70% crop failure rate. So UNICEF has already raised about 3.5 million to fund its project called WASH, WASH, which contributes to efforts to promote health and sanitation, which includes emergency water trucking and rehabilitating some of the water infrastructure that is currently not serving people there for individual families. However, that of course leaves a gap of 89% of its monetary goal that it still has yet to find funding for. In other news on the Oromo Liberation Army, the OLA recently put out a press release criticizing what it says are the Prosperity Party's empty attempts at staging a peaceful national dialogue. We'll put that press release up here. This press release lists several confidence-building measures that the OLA sees as non-negotiable prerequisites to promote a true national dialogue of peace in the country. Those include here reaching a negotiated cessation of hostilities across the country, dealing with Eritrean influence and withdrawing its forces from Ethiopia, releasing all political prisoners across the country, opening unimpeded humanitarian corridors wherever it's needed, repealing the proclamation that designates the OLA and the TPLF as terrorist organizations, and an all-inclusive process that leads to the establishment of an independent commission that is acceptable to all stakeholders. So according to this press release from the OLA, Abiy's current national dialogue is in fact more focused on unifying his own forces and subsequently sowing discord among Oromo opposition forces. And it suggests that the regime will attempt to connect with the United Front of the Ethiopian Federalist and Confederalist Forces, which that group, that front, in fact, includes the OLA and the TPLF. And then this press statement suggesting that that could in fact be a ploy because of the fact that the OLA will have to refuse to engage in the dialogue due to its conditions not being met. And this release also suggesting that Abiy may be attempting to create an image of internal peace on the world stage in order to secure funding that he surely needs from Western countries, since some of the financial support of China, the UAE, and Turkey seems to be deficient to support the Ethiopian economy currently dealing with serious inflation as well as some other setbacks. In other news, Filsan Ahmed, who is the former Ethiopian Minister of Women, Children, and Youth, and who resigned 4 months ago in protest of the government, appeared in an exclusive interview with CNN in which she said that Abiy has completely mishandled the situation on the part of the government. So Filsan resigned after she was assigned head of a task force that was dedicated to addressing and investigating the use of rape as a weapon of war against women, as well as the recruitment of child soldiers in the Tigray region. And she resigned in protest after she gathered some data on those topics, but was told by the government that she had to revise her report to show that only the TPLF affiliated fighters had been responsible for committing atrocities in the conflict. And she actually released an open letter just recently to the Ethiopian people in which she details some of her experience and what she thinks must be done. So here she writes, she released this on her Twitter. She's writing to that the international community must play a role in this conflict. She writes, the international community should be concerned and fully invested in a Dayton Agreement process for peace. It's the only way Ethiopians can find common ground for coexistence and space to heal. So now in this interview that she did recently on CNN, she expands upon what she wrote in this letter to Ethiopians and also gives her take on Abiy's regime as an insider in the government. So we'll play a clip from that interview now.
Went to the front lines to lead the fight against the Tigray People's Liberation Front. You say in your open letter to the Ethiopian people that this is a man who has a Nobel Peace Prize in one hand and a gun in the other. As somebody who was in his government, what do you make of his handling of the situation?
He's obviously mishandled this whole situation in the country. And we were not expecting to be in this situation to begin with. So we have a prime minister who's holding a Nobel Peace Prize and a gun in the other, and the population is so polarized and divided. And the division among groups is beyond with deep-rooted issues. So on top of that, like I've said, we have a man who was supposed to lead the country out of all the problems that we had. Yet we regressed back and we are in this situation. And there's no way, I don't believe the prime minister has the capacity to bring the people out of this. And of course, I would repeat saying that we are a free fall of a one-man hubris and a one-man bravado and narcissism that has brought and led us to this mess.
So they're an exclusive interview on CNN with Filsan Ahmed, formerly a minister in the Ethiopian government. She also has leveled criticism at some of the ways in which the UN has dealt with this crisis, has not responded to it correctly. In her letter to Ethiopians, she says that when her ministry published her report on the documented weaponized rape in the Tigray region by Ethiopian and Eritrean soldiers, she says here in a lunch meeting, a senior UN representative told her, quote, "The rapes are an exaggeration of the TPLF." And she complains that the UN did not put the protective measures in place that could have helped to ease that situation. So going forward, we will continue to bring you updates on conflict in the Tigray region, as well as, of course, in the Oromo region, as well as any kind of airstrikes that continue in Yemen as that story develops and as Oromo refugees are also affected by that situation. Thanks again for watching FNN News, Finfine News Network, and I am your host, Sibel.